We've got more inputs coming through as far as the interrogation details, ladies and gentlemen. And here is what we are given to understand. That the task was to take revenge over remarks on the Prophet. The other aspect is planned to meet an ISIS handler in India. The handler was to provide weapons and logistics for attack. Recruited by the Daesh between April and June 2022. Given orders by Daesh handlers via telegram. There were also some in-person meetings in Istanbul, but the overall instructions came via this chat platform, that is Telegram. So Pathikrit, Payne, you were not off the mark that there had to be OGWs or Trojans within who were going to provide them logistical support and also with the weapons and the explosives, etc. So clearly, and that's where we saw the crackdown which happened within 48 hours, more than 35 locations and more than nearly 48 people who were rounded up. That happened. And this was across 6 to 7 states.
Well, Anand, yes, you're right. If you look at it, even during the Pulwama terror attack, the masterminds actually who were, one of the nephews of Maulana Masood Azhar, he came and he actually masterminded it. But the bomb was actually the fabrication of the bomb using ammonium nitrate, aluminum powder, and a certain amount of RTX was done in Kashmir itself, in Pulwama itself. So for in this case also, somebody who will be very highly motivated of Uzbek origin, as you said, would be coming to India, and then some, because he may or may not be very proficient with the local language and local, regions. So there would be somebody who would be mentoring him, who would be giving him logistical support. He would be staying somewhere. Somebody will be giving him shelter. So there is an entire architecture who would be working with him to actually make it sure that the plan get executed. This has been the pattern with which terrorism has had worked in Kashmir for a long time. Unfortunately, right, most of the Indians remain absolutely ignorant and oblivion of the kind of threat that we face. Today, very sadly, this threat and the modus operandi which has been used in Kashmir is now getting proliferated beyond Kashmir, and it is being targeted or being used elsewhere. We have to understand, for a long time there was this presumption that terrorism is only localized in Kashmir. Way back or down south in say, if you look at in Sri Lanka, an organization affiliated to ISIS did a devastated bombing of a church a few years back.
Yes.
So it is a vindication that whether it is the extreme north or extreme south, the same ideology and the same threat prevails. And therefore, central India or the parts of India which have not generally been affected, they cannot anymore presume that they are immune from the whole thing. So today, the biggest challenge, as the other panelists also rightly mentioned, is fighting the ideology, fighting the whole proliferation of these unregistered madrasas being funded from the West, being funded from the Middle East primarily, the proliferation of social media, how indoctrination happens to that, and primarily, it is very, very important to have continuous, consistent capacity building on internal security architecture.
Some of the things which are heartening and which also stand out at this point is the fact that there is interagency coordination which is happening, and that is also happening at a global level. If the inputs came in or the warning came in from America, and then there is cooperation from the Russians, who by these nations are at loggerheads with each other, but when it comes to a counter-terror mechanism, India has got the help and assistance that's come through. But here again, it's not the Islamic State of Syria or ISIS which is involved. This is ISKP or Daesh Khorasan which is involved. So the Khorasan province or the Khorasanis who are involved, and they are largely present in Afghanistan. Now, how is it that their motivation is such that their planning is to a level where they want to get somebody from Central Asia, Fidains from there, to come to Indian soil and perpetrate attacks? Daesh Khorasan largely has looked at optics. So if they had done a dhamaka, it would have been a big one. Big losses in a big public place, in a market, at an airport or at some place, and where some people were involved, and then again it would have been innocents who would have been involved, and more importantly it would have been the image of India which would have been damaged. But here is the other aspect, and this information also coming through right now. Let's just put this out quickly. The news that is coming is that the money had been sent even into Jammu and Kashmir. Now funding to Daesh Kashmir or ISIS Kashmir was also made. There were members of the Islamic State who had got money from Daesh Khorasan for this attack. Now that's the information that we are getting at this point in time. So that's additional.